Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Urshan, and this is 21 films that I think everyone should own in their collection. This was actually created by All Movie Reviews with Craig, so definitely check his channel out. He's the one that came up with this idea. And I just thought it was so cool, and I saw a lot of other people do it on YouTube. And I thought I'd put my hat in the mix, So obviously this isn't going to be all horror movies, but there will be a few key horror movies. This is all film in general that we're talking about. So here we go, and keep in mind these are in no particular order because I couldn't possibly rank this list of incredible movies. Except the first one will be in order because it's my favorite movie of all time, and that is the original Halloween from 1978, directed by the legendary John Carpenter. It's just a 5-star masterpiece. I love everything about it. I love the cast, I love the characters, I love the atmosphere is incredible. I love the character of Michael Myers, I love Dr. Loomis and Jamie Lee, and everything about this movie is just awesome. Almost every scene is iconic. Next up we have what I feel is the greatest gangster movie ever made, and that is The Godfather. Anytime I watch this movie, I am just completely engrossed into the storyline, into everything that's going on. I mean, it just draws you in, and it can be at any point in the movie that I see it on TV. I just have to watch the rest of it, And it's quite an investment. It's about 3.5 hours. But I can't take my eyes off the screen. Brilliant direction from Francis Ford Coppola. An incredible cast. You got Marlon Brando, who won an Oscar for his role as Vito Corleone. You got Al Pacino, James Caan, Robert Duvall. It's just insane. It's brilliant. Next up, come on, you absolutely have to have this on your list, people. Rocky, the original classic starring Sylvester Stallone in the absolutely iconic role of Rocky Balboa. I mean, say what you will about Sylvester Stallone. You can question his acting in some movies or say that he made some crappy movies, but you cannot question his role in the original Rocky. And you can't deny the fact that he created an absolutely iconic character in the history of movies. And not only that, but you got an incredible cast here, an amazing array of characters. You got Apollo Creed, played so well by Carl Weathers. He's so intimidating. You got Burgess Meredith as Mickey, Rocky's trainer. You got Burt Young as Paulie. Adrian. All these great characters, and it's such a great underdog story. It's so inspirational. And you've got that iconic score, of course. Next up, if it's going to be one Star Wars movie, it's going to be this one, the original Star Wars, otherwise known as A New Hope. It's looked at as the fourth in the franchise, but to me it's the original Star Wars. And it's the first one ever released, it's the first one ever made, so it's the original Star Wars to me. And I love everything about this movie. This movie was a game changer in film, It changed the face of movies, the way movies are made. Everyone who saw it in the theater was just absolutely blown away because they'd never seen anything like it. And to this day, it's still my favorite by far of the Star Wars franchise. Even though Empire is awesome, I just have a lot more fun with the original Star Wars, I love the camaraderie, the chemistry between these incredible characters. Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And of course you got the greatest screen villain of all time, Darth Vader. Next up, it's the most badass movie probably ever made, and that is The Terminator from 1984. I friggin' love this movie. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. The direction by James Cameron, it's so original. It's scary, it's such a wonderful blend of sci-fi, action, and yes, horror. This is like how Alien is from, Aliens. Aliens is the action movie, and this is like the scary one. And it doesn't get any scarier than Arnold Schwarzenegger as a killer robot from the future, a cyborg, sent to kill Sarah Connor. And what a great story. What a great cast, a great supporting cast with Linda Hamilton, Michael Biehn. Awesome, awesome movie. This is just such a cool, badass movie, Next up, it's one of my absolute favorite dramas of all time and my favorite courtroom drama, and that is A Few Good Men. I'd be hard-pressed to think of a movie with a better cast than this movie. I mean, you got Tom Cruise at his best, you got Jack Nicholson at his best, you got Demi Moore, you got Kevin Bacon, you got Kiefer Sutherland. What an amazing cast. And I absolutely love the story. I love the mystery of it, and I love a good courtroom drama, and it doesn't get better than that ending, that last courtroom scene with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise going at it. And of course, that iconic line, "You can't handle the truth." And next up, yes, I am going to pick a romantic comedy, and that is Breakfast at Tiffany's. To me, is the greatest romantic comedy ever made. And you've got Audrey Hepburn, and just the movie that put her on the map, made her so iconic in this character of Holly Golightly. And I just love the character. I love the writing by Truman Capote. And George Papard, I think, is great, and I love their chemistry. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Next up is another romantic film, and it's The Quiet Man. Now, I'm not a huge John Wayne guy, but I can't deny his performance in this movie. I really liked him in this movie. And, of course, you had Maureen O'Hara, probably my favorite Irish actress. And to me, this is like the ultimate Irish movie, Anytime St. Patrick's Day comes around, I always pop this in, I love it. I have a lot of family from Ireland. My cousins are from Ireland. My mother is from Ireland. So, yeah, I love the Irish history, and this is just a great movie, Next up, now, when it comes to comedy, I'm not a huge comedy guy, but there's certainly some great comedies that have been made. The only problem is I don't have that many of them, so I can't put them on this list. Like, for example, Caddyshack is probably my favorite comedy of all time, but unfortunately I don't have a copy of it, so I can't put it on the list. But I can put this one, Coming to America, which is absolutely hilarious. I love this movie. And I'm so psyched for the sequel, by the way. Yeah, Eddie Murphy is just incredible, and not only is Eddie Murphy incredible, but so is Arsenio Hall, and all the different characters that both of them play. I mean, it's just hilarious. Especially the mighty sharp barber shop. I mean, every character is played by either Eddie Murphy or Arsenio Hall, and it's just a riot, and you see all the different makeup jobs and amazing stuff. I mean, this movie is freaking hilarious. Next up, we have the iconic Scarface. Yes, my favorite film starring Al Pacino. In my favorite role of Al Pacino, as Tony Montana, gangster. And, man, I mean, this movie is endlessly quotable. I mean, how many great classic lines are in this movie? And, yeah, fantastic direction. Incredible movie, you know, it's just so memorable, and you got a great cast with Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert Loggia. Awesome, awesome movie. Next up, we have the greatest shark movie there ever will be. The best there has been, the best there ever will be. Jaws. From 1975, of course, directed by Steven Spielberg. With an incredible cast, Roy Scheider as Chief Brody, just amazing. You got Richard Dreyfuss in there. Just an incredible movie, and it's a great example of less is more. You know, you don't really see the shark that much, but when you do, it's terrifying. You know. The one scene that always gets me is when Richard Dreyfuss goes down in that little cage underneath the boat, and the shark is just coming right at him, smashing through the cage. Oh my God, it's so scary. And that's why people are so afraid of the water, afraid of the beach. You know, they were traumatized by this movie. Next up is Mad Max. The maximum force of the future. This movie is so badass. Shout out goes to my brother-in-law, Bobby. This is his favorite movie. And I always loved it. And I always go back and forth between this and the sequel, The Road Warrior. But I'm going to put the original on this list because this is the one that started it all. And my favorite performance from Mel Gibson ever. And I just love the character of Max Rokitansky. I love that apocalyptic future, you know. And it's just so badass. Next up, we have what I feel is the ultimate sci-fi horror film. And that is Alien from 1975. I'm sorry, 1979. Starring the incredible Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, and you got an amazing cast. So it's not just Sigourney Weaver. Everyone in this movie is good. Yaphet Kotto, Tom Skerritt, Harry Dean Stanton. Such a great cast of characters. And an incredible mix of sci-fi and horror. To me, it's the best example of both, you know. And the amazing set design by H.R. Giger, who also did, of course, the creature design of the alien. And what an original design that is, you know. Terrifying monster, and the suspense in this movie is unreal. The atmosphere is incredible. It's just a terrifying movie. Next up, we have what is not exactly my favorite zombie film, but to me it's the most important zombie film ever made, and that is Night of the Living Dead, the original classic from 1968, directed by the legendary George A. Romero. Yeah, to me this was the game changer for zombies, you know, in film, you know, and it changed the face of horror as well, you know, and it also changed how independent movies are made, you know. Yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, this movie is definitely still the scariest zombie movie in my mind. It's just amazing. Next up, we have what I feel is the perfect representation of James Bond. It's not necessarily my favorite James Bond. It's actually my second favorite, so it's definitely up there, but to me, no movie represents James Bond as well as Goldfinger. You got a great villain. You got Sean Connery in what I feel is his best performance in the role of 007. And you got Oddjob in there, you know. It's got great action. And like I said, it's just a perfect example of James Bond film. It's got everything you need, you know. Next up, we have my favorite action movie of all time, and that is First Blood, the introduction of John J. Rambo. So yet another iconic character from Sylvester Stallone. And I think his performance in this is just as good as he was in Rocky. It's raw, it's gritty, it's realistic, and you have this... I love the story. You got this Vietnam veteran who extreme PTSD. And, he goes to this small town just to, get something to eat, and they harass him. The sheriff harasses him and treats him like a piece of crap. This war hero with all kinds of medals, and they mess with him, and they mess with the wrong guy. I love the scene where they're in the woods, and Rambo jumps out on Sheriff Will Teasel, played so well by Brian Dennehy, and he's got the knife to his throat, and he's like, don't push it, or I'll give you a war you won't believe. I love everything about that movie. Next up, you have what I feel is the best true crime movie ever made, and that was Monster. And you've got what I feel is the greatest acting performance ever in Charlize Theron. I mean, her performance just is unmatched. It's unbelievable. And if you don't believe me, just watch the special about Aileen Wuornos and see some interviews with Aileen Wuornos, the serial killer that this movie was based on, and you'll appreciate her performance all that much more. And not only that, but you got a great performance by Christina Ricci. It's an incredible movie. Next up, I had a really hard time deciding what I'm going to pick for the greatest comic book movie ever made. And to me, it's Avengers Infinity War. I mean, it's loaded with action, and it's so amazing what they were able to do with so many iconic characters all in one movie. And not only that, this is the darkest Marvel movie, probably. And you've got an incredible villain in Thanos that I never thought I would say this, but one of the greatest screen villains of all time. And he's a CGI character, and it's amazing that they were able to pull that off. And a lot of that has to do, of course, with Josh Brolin doing the voice acting. But just the character, every time he's on screen, there's a sense of dread and horror, Amazing film. And next up, if you're going to pick one Star Trek movie, of course, it has to be Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And I'm a big Star Trek fan, as well as Star Wars, I'm a massive fan of the original Star Trek series, and this movie perfectly represents the original series. And you got thrilling action, you got that thrilling rivalry between Captain Kirk and Khan, even though they're never in the same room together, you just see them square off, battle of wits, if you will, yeah. And of course, you've got the death of Spock, is so emotional. It's just an incredible movie. Next up, I had to represent the Western genre, and in my mind, the greatest Western of all time is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, starring the great Clint Eastwood. This is the ultimate spaghetti Western. It's the ultimate Western, period. I love this movie. I love everything about it. You've got that absolutely incredible score. You got the brilliant direction by Sergio Leone. You got those awesome close-up shots of these, gritty gunslingers in the Wild West, And I love the ending, when all three of the main characters are squaring off, and you don't know who's going to live, who's going to die, and they're just eyeing each other, getting ready to draw. It's so intense. And last, but certainly not least, if I'm going to represent the vampire genre, I'm going to use the greatest vampire movie of all time, in my opinion, Horror of Dracula, starring Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, in this Hammer horror masterpiece. To me, it's the ultimate vampire film, it's the ultimate Dracula film, and it's the ultimate Hammer film. It's just perfect in every way, Even though I love the original, with Bela Lugosi, the Universal Monsters, and I do think that Bela Lugosi's performance in that was the definitive Dracula. But to me, Horror of Dracula is a much better movie overall. So, that's it, guys, for my 21 films that I think everyone